Hey, it's Andrew here at BTO Range. We're here in the front of the range at one of our small benches with a small vise on it because I wanted to go over how we change sights on semi-automatic pistols. And this is a Springfield Armory XDS, and that is one of the more difficult sights to pull the factory sights off of. And we see a lot of videos and hear a lot of stuff on the forums about how these things are put on with some kind of super secret, secret squirrel stuff in Croatia, how they put the sights on, they can't get them off. And people use all kind of weird tool combinations that set themselves up for failure. They use giant hammers, they use, it's just all crazy. Here's how we do it, and they come out pretty easily. So we have a vise mounted here. We're gonna chuck our slide up in non-mooring vise jaws. And we're gonna drive this. Where people fail is they don't maximize the energy they're putting onto the sight. So what we see them doing is they'll use, to pull the sights off, they'll use a brass punch, or they'll use a nylon hammer, or they'll use a dead blow hammer, or they'll use something that doesn't transmit all the energy of the strike to the sight itself. And that's why these sights are so hard to pull off for these people, because I've even seen them use a metal punch, but then for some unfathomable reason, they'll pick up a nylon hammer. We pull every set of sights, regardless of whether it's a Springfield or a PX4 Beretta. This is a 6-ounce ball peen hammer and a steel punch. The steel punch fits this dovetail. So we're going to make sure that we're driving into the vise and not into the jaw. That way we don't have that tolerance in the screw thread of the vise to delete some of that energy also. So this is a factory rear sight on an XDS. We're going to set our punch here. And the reason I use this low vise is I can lock this hammer right in here. And it's off. It actually went over there. So it pulls right off without having to use big giant hammers, without having to come back here and smack your fingers. It's all about using the correct tools for the job to get the sight off there. We're going to have to dig that out because we do return the sights to the customer. The old sights, when we put the sights on, we don't charge. If they buy the sights from us, we don't charge to put the sights on. Now, before you say, oh, he's putting it in the wrong way, these sights, this side dovetail is not directional on XDS. It's the same. It can go in either way. It can go in and out either way. So now, the other thing that people fail to do is they don't fit these sights. True glows very rarely need to be fitted. Trijicons almost always need to be fitted. If we had to fit the sight, we don't ever file the sight dovetail. We file the dovetail in the slide. We file the sight. And what we see people doing is taking a file and coming in here and trying to file these sides, and you'll never keep the angle. You'll never keep the angle correct, and then you'll be able to see light through the sight notch when you look at the gun from the side. So when we do have to file it, we get our file, and what we would do is lay the sight flat on the file, and then we would take file strokes along here, effectively filing this bottom surface of the sight. That way, if you file that bottom surface, you're reducing both sides of this dovetail evenly at the same time. So it takes half as long to do it. It does it evenly, and you maintain those angles. So there's no reason to set yourself up for failure and have a cruddy looking sight installation because you didn't use the right tools. So we make sure that the True Glows have this set screw, so we make sure that's not in the way. And we want to make sure that this will go at least a third of the way or more before it comes to a stop, and we're there. So we don't have to do a whole lot to the dovetail. Now, we're going to use our non-mooring brass punch. And people use brass punches. They're like carpenter's pencils. They use them till they're just completely gone. This guy here is almost dead. We've refaced it a whole bunch of times. So again, we're going to come And we're trying to make sure we don't have to come back and chase it on both sides. So we don't want to, if we can avoid it, we don't want to have to come back and say, oh, because we'll be, doing this forever and ever. So we're looking straight down onto the slide. We're lining the center of the notch up with the extractor here. And we're also looking at our notches here. So we're in pretty good shape on that side. So now we don't necessarily even have to pull the slide out of the vise. We can come back and reverse the process, do the exact same thing for the front side. We're going to get our sight punch fits the dovetail, or our steel punch fits the dovetail. And these impossible to get out sights are out. It's really that easy if you use the right tool. So now we get our True Glow TFX front sight. The exact same thing applies. We're going to make sure that we can get into the dovetail. That one should go. Actually, I like it to go a little bit deeper into that dovetail before we start. And this is just a cheap Harbor Freight file. You don't have to use your super good $20 files for this process. Sometimes all you have to do is knock the edges off of the rough, or if there's any roughness on the bottom of that side. Now we're in there where we need to be. Sometimes you have to take the file back to the bench sander and face that flat again, because this will chip out the brass. And that's okay. That's why these brass files are expendable. And again, we're trying to get it lined up with the center of this emblem right there. We're trying to line up the center of the sight with the center of the top of that crest. That way we don't have to come back in from the other side and try to push it. Okay. So now we can come out of the vise. We have our sights on. We actually have to come over a little bit more. Now, on certain models, this is a flat. The sides of the slide are flat. They're not angled. So if you're going to do an XDM or any of the HK product, or VP9 or USP, if you try to put those in a sight pusher, or you try to just chuck it up like this, it's going to, anytime you when you start putting force on it, it's going to angle. The work piece is going to roll on you. And if you have, especially HK, if you have those in a sight pusher, you could actually crack the slide. And those slides, an HK USP slide is $350. So don't do that. What we do is we'll actually leave the slide on the frame and put it in the vise. And that gives us more of a flat surface to pull that in with. Okay. So it doesn't take a whole lot to do this. And I do have, obviously I have brass that has rubbed onto the side of the slide, but that's going to come off with a little CLP and an old toothbrush. So all we have to do now is clean it up, retrieve that old rear sight from behind the bench where it went and put the gun back together and get it to the customer. And that's all there is to it.